This is a review of the Dorseyville Middle School schedule. It reviews the current schedule and the new schedule just presented to the teachers and parents. This schedule includes new curriculum, and I'll attempt to analyze both the current and the new schedule so that we can all understand it a little bit better. First, the current schedule is a traditional one that's developed over years, and in addition to regular periods, it has this home base period, which is one set up for the two different kinds of curriculum. One we'll call core, the other one we'll call enrichment. Now, during this home base period of 40 minutes, students can work on things that they need to. They can work on intervention or core intervention, which means they can go and see teachers on an individual basis to work on problems. And each day there's a sheet that comes, and teachers can have those students come to them if they think they're in need, or if they're advanced students, they can use that time to work on enrichment. They can do a special project, do a Genius Hour, go to the Build It Lab, basically work on a project with the teachers, do something in orchestra, etc. So this is a 40-minute time period, which is very unique and gives a lot of time for individual attention. So a student needing help could spend all 40 minutes on core, or a student doing well could spend all 40 minutes on enrichment. So this is a typical schedule, and after that 40-minute period, there's a 4-minute span where the students move from one class to another. So basically every 40 minutes they get to move around. So they go to the first class, and this is literacy. They're there for 44 minutes. Now, I have put in 180 days here. The standard school year is 180 days, plus or minus a little bit with half days. But I've used this 180 days to give us a basis so that we could get the approximate amount of minutes spent each year in order to look at the amount of time, at least in a ratio between core and enrichment, and to see how it looks in the current schedule versus the new schedule. So for example, my son would go to in home base, then he'd go to literacy, 40 minutes, run to math, he'd get to move around, then he'd get to move around a little bit, run to science, and again move around a little bit and go to social studies. So by the time the morning was up, he will have gone to all of his core classes, and it would have been about 35,000 minutes throughout the year. And if he's an average student, he would have spent 20 minutes on the core intervention in the home base time and 20 minutes on enrichment. Then he gets to go to lunch, which is 30 minutes long, and after lunch he gets to go to orchestra or gym, and there's an A-B schedule so that on different days students go to different classes. And the same thing, he'd have a 4-minute run to his next thing, and then he could take art, tech ed, computer science, facts, and different things. And if he's like my son, he's taking a world language throughout the year, and that would be every day. So here's his schedule, and he gets to basically take everything this school has to offer. And if he wasn't doing orchestra and he was a student needing extra help, he might put a study hall in here. So there's lots of room for individual attention, plus extra studying if he needs to, and there is a lot of enrichment. So if a student who's doing very well, he can spend about half of his time, about 30-some thousand hours per year on enrichment, and about an equal amount, here just over 31,000 minutes on core. So there's an equal breakdown here. So pretty much an advanced student, and we have a high percentage of advanced students, can spend equal amount of time on those two. Also, a student who's struggling can get a lot of extra help because they get 40 minutes of individual attention during home base to help with all their core studies. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of individual attention in the current traditional schedule. The new schedule, which is basically a block type schedule where the classes are longer, and we are going from a 44-minute class in literacy to an 80-minute class in literacy. And we're also losing home base so that there's none of this individual time given. So we're losing home base, and also we've been told that there's no allowance for study hall as well. So the new schedule, we started the same 8:15 in the morning. Of course, we ended about the same 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So nothing has changed there. And we still have 30 minutes for lunch, so nothing has changed there. So according to this bell schedule, basically we're in 80 minutes with one teacher in literacy, and then we jump over for 4 minutes to the next class, which is math. So again, we're 80 more minutes with one teacher, and then again 4 minutes we jump over and we're 80 more minutes with the science teacher, and then we go to lunch. However, then after lunch we're to the social studies class, and once we finish social studies we finished our core. Now social studies is the only subject which is in the core that is losing minutes. It's going from 44 minutes down to 40 minutes. And if you multiply that by the 180 days, you're looking at 7,200 minutes. And we're looking at a total amount of core time increase from here. So for an advanced student, we were about 50% and 50%. And for the average student, that was a little bit more for core than enrichment. But in this, everyone goes to about 77+% for core, and about 23 or less percent for enrichment. But let's dive a little deeper and see what's happening. So in this 80 minutes, we understand we have the Eureka curriculum, and that's coming from a company called Great Minds, and that is a nonprofit organization, and they basically supply this curriculum. And it's a 60-minute curriculum. We're going from a 44-minute curriculum to a 60-minute new curriculum. But on top of that, the teachers now have to develop 20 minutes more, or 20 minutes of new curriculum that doesn't exist. So to make up this 80 minutes, we have 60 minutes of Eureka and 20 minutes of new curriculum. So now the teachers are going to have more time that they need to keep all these students engaged, which will be a bigger challenge, not only for the students, but a much bigger challenge for the teacher. And in order to keep all the students engaged, there will not be this individual one-on-one time that we have during home base. Well, let's go from literacy to math. And math is the same type of thing. Just a couple years ago, not that long ago, Eureka came up with a math program. So this is now, again, a 60-minute program. But we have given it 80 minutes for some reason, and we now have to have our teachers develop 20 minutes more of new curriculum to fill that out. So we've now sat for 160 minutes, and we've moved around for 4. Unlike here, where they've moved around, and moved around, so they have much more, 3 times the amount of moving around by the time they're done with this same time period. So after that, they're going to go to science, and that's another 80 minutes. Now, science is different because there is no Eureka curriculum for science. So that we're going from a science of 44 minutes to a science of 80 minutes times 180. So we're looking at 14,400 minutes per year on science. However, because there's only a 40-some minute curriculum, the teachers are going to be responsible for creating 40 new minutes of curriculum. We've also been told that computer science is going to become a requirement here and become part of science for a quarter of the year, and that's basically equivalent to 20 minutes in this view of it. And so I'm not sure if the science teachers are now going to be responsible for teaching computer science, but there's no movement otherwise, so we'll make that assumption. So now you have the students seeing fewer teachers, like a fraction of the teachers that they were. Before they would see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teachers, and now in that same time period they're only seeing 3 teachers. So half the teachers basically are needed with this new block, or another word for it is narrowing the curriculum schedule. And we have a lot of new curriculum that has not yet even been developed, nor has it been evaluated or tested. So after lunch we're going to social studies, which I assume will be basically the same curriculum, except that it has to be shortened by 10%, because we're going from 7,900 minutes to 7,200 minutes. And now we get into the last 2 periods, but we have to deal with gym, which is a requirement. And again, I mentioned we have an A-B schedule, so that on different days they take different classes. But one of those A's throughout the year has to be taken up for gym to meet the requirements, and at least part of B has to be taken up by FACS. So that leaves us a quarter of the year with the ability to have an elective. So we've taken all the other subjects, orchestra, computer science, and tech, ed, art, and world language, and we've made those electives, as you can see down here. Now we have basically a quarter here, elective through the year, and here we have 1 whole period. So we're basically going from 3, and if you don't include this for an advanced student, 4 periods of elective, well, we'll call them enrichments, because there's no electives here. You can do everything in the current schedule. With the new schedule, you lose out because you can't take everything like you can here. You have to just select, and so you have 1, 2 classes for part of the year and 1 for a quarter of the year. So you can select those. If you would try to do a language throughout the year like you can do here, we've been told you're not going to be permitted to do a language throughout the year as you are here. We've also been told that the elementary school curriculum is going to be changed, and the language sampler, which is in 6th grade, is going to be pushed down into the elementary school. That if you're going to try to take a language here in this new schedule, you're going to go right into that language class. So if you look at it, in the total amount, you're down to elective minutes of about 9,000 for the year. Also, if you just want to look at enrichment, you can see it's, like I said, a smaller fraction, for the year. So you're going from, for the advanced student, you're going to less than half of the amount of enrichment time that you had before, and a little bit less if you're an average student. So anyway, in summary, I just wanted to mention that this is a massive change in the amount of time, and it's a massive change in the curriculum. And the interesting thing, if you add these up, you'll find that 28% of this core curriculum does not yet exist. It hasn't been tested. And the core was about 50% of the day, or 50% of the curriculum, and now it's 77% or slightly more. So the enrichment was 50% of the curriculum, or just slightly less for different students, and now it's down below 23%. And there's also less time for individual attention, or helping individual students work on problems. You've increased the stress an amount for both the teachers and students having to deal with much longer time periods. And there's, in terms of teachers, I already mentioned that you're only seeing 3 teachers here, so it looks like basically a 50% drop in the need for core teachers and at least a 50% drop in the need for enrichment teachers as well. So there's what appears to be a large drop in the amount of teachers required. One other thing I want to mention, especially interesting for middle school, is middle school often has programs where students get out of class to go to an event or go to a soccer match whereby they're going to miss class. Well, when classes length is increased to 80 minutes, you're talking about twice the amount of curriculum being covered. So the ability of a student to miss a class and make it up becomes much more difficult. If they're sick for a couple days, again, it becomes extremely difficult for them to make up the time. Well, so all this leaves me with a number of questions, and it might leave you with the same. And I want to bring up those questions. So, first of all, what is the justification for this massive a change? And what is the goal of this massive a change? And if we have this massive a change to both the schedule and the curriculum, how is that going to be measured? How is it going to be evaluated, determined if it's better than the current schedule and curriculum? You know, how are we putting things into place that are going to measure and allow us to evaluate that schedule? Now, block systems have been used in high school. They're basically unheard of in middle schools, and an 80-minute schedule is unknown. Have we looked at schools that have adopted this type of block, especially an 80-minute one, and evaluated whether that has worked? Is there any proof that going to this block system, will achieve any goals? What are the pros and cons in this? Have we done a risk analysis? And by the way, have we done a needs analysis to determine, what are the students' needs, and is this something that we need? Have alternatives been evaluated? Were the teachers and the parents involved, and have they agreed that we need this kind of change? And how many teaching positions will be lost by this? And are we doing this to save money? And if so, how much money is going to be saved? And if we stand back and look at this change, is it really helping our students or hurting our students' education? And then, is this massive change helping or hurting our community? And if it's a bad move, can we recover from this big mistake? And was it done for the right or the wrong reasons? I implore you, should we not look before we leap?